You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Hello and welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. I'm Matt Adams alongside Mike Chappell this week. Dave Griffiths has a car in the shop. Not able to join us this week.
I'd rather be here.
Absolutely. I told Dave the same thing. I'm like, it's too bad that you have to miss the podcast to specifically do that. But, you know, those things happen. We got a lot to talk about today, as we always do. Joint practices in Cincinnati, or a joint practice in Cincinnati with the Colts. Colts at Bengals on Thursday. That is their final preseason game tomorrow night. We'll have some injury notes and important return for the Colts. And let's start off, Mike. You traveled to Cincinnati yesterday. From some of the things I read from different media reports, different Colts reporters, and your own reporting, pretty rough start for the offense yesterday.
Yeah, so I'd say uncharacteristically, but they've had some herky-jerky starts up at Grand Park, but they didn't play well the first couple of 11-on-11s. And as was reported, I mean, the Bengals DBs and linemen were sort of chirping at Richardson. Is that all he does is run? Is, you know, he throws the spots. It wasn't a good start. There was a 7-on-7 play where he looks to the right or looks to the left, and he brings the ball back, and as he does it, he loses the grip and he just throws it in the ground. You know, is it incomplete or a fumble, whatever. But then he did warm up a little bit, which is what we've seen at Grand Park, to where he finishes practices pretty strong. And I think we've come to the conclusion that he's just better when he calls it real football, when it's sort of call the play, react, and things. I don't say there's less thinking. That's a connotation of not having a good grasp of the game. I just think he's better when he reacts. And they finished the session practice with the Bengals on a 2-minute down 2 or down 1, and they need to score. He's 3 for 5. I think it was a couple of completions to Pittman, a one to Granson, or vice versa, and then Matt Gay knocks down a 50-yard field goal. Which we
need to see that, right?
He was 6 for 6 yesterday, and you know, I'm not putting up the red flags, but he's 1 for 4 in preseason. And he's 18 for 27 since he started 16 for 18 last year. So, you know, is that a concern? I'm not dismissing it. It was good to see. But with Richardson, I've just come to the conclusion that to some extent this is who he is. He has started 17 games since graduating high school.
Man.
17.
It's crazy.
You know, 13 at Florida and 4 last year. And I want to remind people, he started 4 games last year and basically played 3 because he missed the second half of 2 games.
Right.
173 snaps, 84 passes, all that stuff. So everything he sees, to some extent, it can still be new. But I just think this is who he's going to be. This isn't his rookie season, but it's darn close. I kind of think we're gonna see him with the up and downs. You hope more ups and downs, and you hope the downs aren't really bad. But I think it's where he's going to lose you a game this year because he's going to make a bad play at the wrong time, and he's going to win you games, and that's what you've got. So, but no, it wasn't really good. He just misses. There was one he threw between 3 receivers, which is really hard to do. And you don't. It's one of those where, like, who was the receiver? I have no idea. And there's 3 guys there, so not a great day. But then, and I watched the offense. I just, you know, I'm sorry, I'm one person. I can't get to both fields. From all reports, the defense played well, and this is against Joe Burrow. I think the Indy guys had him 14 of 18, but there were like 10 plays in the red zone, and he couldn't score. And whether it was Latu or Quiddipe or DeForest, or the Colts put up a nice video of Zaire Franklin coming in on a middle blitz.
Saw that.
And all Burrow could do was throw the ball on the ground because he knew
nowhere to go.
He was dead meat. So that's encouraging. But again, on the offense, again, that I'm so committed there because I think the team rises and falls with how the quarterback does. So not his best day, but I've sort of gotten used to not always seeing the start to finish best of Richardson because he's still a work in progress.
It always just feels like, from reports I've read and such, that once the Colts play with a little bit of tempo,
right,
then Richardson, everything just kind of clicks for him, and the reads become easier, the throws become better, everything just has a little bit more juice. So if he can kind of translate that a little bit into the season, because like you said, you're essentially starting more or less a rookie quarterback. He only appeared in 4 games last year for the Colts, had to take the rest of the season out for surgery. So we have a very inexperienced guy at a college level. So there's going to be some growing pains. And I know people think that the offseason's good for him. I do think he's learned a lot. I do think mechanically he's probably learned some things as well and improved some things. But you're just going to have to take the good with the bad there. And your hope is that there's enough offensive talent and there's enough on the defensive side of the ball that can kind of pick him up in some of those games. And then there, like you said, there may be a game where he makes that bonehead play and that's it. The game's over. And then the next week, things look bad, the picture's bleak, and then
the Rams game last year, you're down 20-0 before you know it, you're going overtime.
Right. So that's kind of what we're going to see from Richardson.
One other thing on the offense, this isn't just all Richardson. The offensive line didn't play exceptionally well.
I heard that they
Jonathan
were a little
Taylor,
yesterday.
I mean, he got stuffed 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And in the past, we've seen against like Arizona, he pops some runs, and it's so hard to gauge what's a good run in camp or joint practices because you thud a guy, you don't bring him to the ground, so it takes into zero account a broken tackle. The longest run yesterday was sort of funny. Was Joe Flacco. He breaks containment runs 20 or 30 yards, and then the ref finally blew the play dead, and it reminded me of Matt Ryan.
That's the first thought that came to me, too.
Was it 33 or 39 yards, whatever it was? And as he's going back to the huddle, he's sort of waving his arms at the Bengals sidelines. And then he finishes that drive with a touchdown run. So there was good, but it just overall the offense didn't play well. Richardson had 1 interception where he squeezed the ball into a tight window to Michael Pittman, off Michael Pittman's hands. A linebacker scoops it up. So, again, it just wasn't a great day. I take it for that's what in a lot of cases we've seen from these guys, so I'm not overly concerned.
Well, and I do think, I mean, the Bengals sound like they're expecting, like they've got a pretty good defensive unit this year. They've got some pass rushers. They've got a young secondary, but it's a pretty solid secondary out there too. So, Colts are also moving some guys around from what I understand. We saw a little bit of Pitt in the slot yesterday. We saw some Alec Pierce in the slot.
We saw AD. We saw right. Granson.
Yeah, so, that also is going to cause some, maybe uncertainties from where you think guys are supposed to be and stuff like that as well. So I'm not making any excuses, but there are factors sometimes that go into these things as well.
It's just that the way the media, including us nowadays, that we want instant analysis, and in so much of what they do now, whatever we see, and we'll get to it in Thursday's game, we won't have seen what this offense truly is. We just won't. No. We're not going to see any very, very, very few zone reads Thursday. We're not going to see heavy doses of what JT can do. It's so vanilla. If you like vanilla, then, bring some Hershey syrup because that's the only flavor you're going to get. And that's to be expected. But with this offense, maybe more than most, we really don't know. From what we see in training camp and during OTAs, we've got a pretty good idea what they want to do because they ran a lot of this stuff in training camp. But in preseason games, you're just not going to see. Right.
You don't want anybody else to see it yet.
You're going to see like 3 pages of the playbook.
Right.
That's the way it works.
So, yeah. So, defensively, though, it sounded like they had a pretty solid day. Burrow had a high completion percentage, but they didn't move the ball particularly well, and there was a lot of QB pressures. They got some quote-unquote sacks. They don't really sack the quarterback in because he's got the red jersey on and that sort of thing.
Knows.
But the quarterback knows, right? The play stops or he throws the ball down or what have you. And then, we've been talking for the past couple of weeks and really all offseason about what are we doing at safety. And so yesterday – we saw some Nick Cross at free safety. We saw some Nick Cross at strong safety. Same thing with Julian Blackmon. He played some free. He played some strong. And then when Blackman was playing strong, then you would see Rodney Thomas go and play free.
Right. And we keep asking Shane Steichen every time about this. Are you closer to being settled? Or what are you doing at safety? Well, and then he gives you the rotation thing. We're getting all these guys in there, and I just think that's where they are, which it's not to me very comforting. On when you're talking like 4 guys you're kind of working back there when you throw Ronnie Harrison in there, and I just and he says, well, sometimes the way the formation comes, you may see if they have split safeties, one guy may come down the box and it may be different guys. I would certainly rather have that position settled. We're not having 3 guys compete at left tackle with Bernard Ryman.
No.
Or into the offensive line or with the defensive line. The different defensive line is different, the way they play people. But linebacker, it's E.J. Speed and Zaire as their 2 main guys. So it's whenever you're moving guys around to a little degree, it's like that slot receiver with Josh Downs out.
Yep.
You're sort of trying to see who works better where, and all 3 of those guys with Granson and AD and even Pierce, and we talked to guys. Pittman could be a pretty good slot guy.
I think so.
He's got the size. He's got the compare. He takes hits, and then if you can get Mitchell and Pierce outside, we'll see. But I just whenever you're moving guys around this late in the process, the team says what they need to say, but it's just not a good thing this late to not know who your main, not who's free or strong, but who are your main 2 guys. We still don't know who that is yet.
Right, and some of the issues that we saw last season were some communication errors that we had in the secondary, and then when you've got different guys playing different positions from package to package or whatever, then that can only exacerbate that particular problem.
If Quiddy Payne makes a mistake at the line of scrimmage, maybe it's a 5-yard gain. You make a communication mistake on the back
Nico Collins,
and it's a 75-yard touchdown. I mean, we hate to keep harping on that, but I can still remember 4 or 5 times last year, not just the safeties, but with the young secondary, I can still see Kenny Moore against the Rams.
Yep, doing those hand signals with Juju.
And all of a sudden, here's Nakua running by himself at the goal line, and the game's over. So you're right. When you've got different guys in there, how sure are you pre-snap that everybody knows what you're doing? And it's just, again, we're going to beat this up until we're going to talk to Chris Ballard, I think, next week, and we'll get their rationale that they really believe in these guys, are committed to them. But when you're moving people around, that means that the guys who finally play haven't gotten, as many reps as maybe they need to, and it always leads to possible confusion.
And also one more note from, I believe, 11-on-11 work. Jalen Jones, the young corner, had a couple of picks yesterday.
Encouraging.
Which is really what you want to see. He kind of he started out real well for them last year, and then just kind of as the season wore on a little bit, I think he just might have worn down
as a
just
rookie,
a little
probably
bit.
So.
And sometimes you just kind of hit that rookie wall. So we'll hope he comes back and has a good second season for the Colts.
And they need to get Juju back out there.
Absolutely.
Didn't go yesterday, and it's not significant. It's probably a broken nose. At least you got a cut on the nose. That's something that you deal with, and the fact they'll have 17 days after the Bengals game to get right. I'm sure he'll be fine. But again, this is you make a list, and this is like his 5th body part.
Well, and not many starters played in that second preseason game, but Juju was out there because he'd missed some practice time.
Because he needed reps.
And they wanted him to get the reps out there. And then what happens, he walks off the field with his nose bloodied and now can't practice. And I would assume that means he's probably not going to play,
Probably
tomorrow night.
not, but he'll be ready for the start of the season.
Yeah, he'll be ready to go for the season.
And boy, they just, as much as we talk about Juju, and he's got everything you want, the size and the length and all that stuff, but boy, you got to play.
You got to get in there. Speaking of a guy who finally got in there, Raekwon Davis, the Colts' big. Well, I shouldn't say he was only their second, one of 2 outside free agent acquisitions for the Colts. He's a defensive tackle.
Well,
they signed him out of Miami.
I thought Biggie were going by his size.
And big. He is
6'7",
big.
325, I think it is.
He's a very, very large man.
Whenever we try to find guys on the field with him, you look at helmet. What's the tallest helmet? Normally it's DeForest Buckner. But this guy's got like 2 inches on him.
And so he'd been on the non-football injury list for a few weeks, actually. All training camp. I guess his pre-camp training or his pre-camp physical discovered he had a high blood pressure issue, so he's been working on trying to get that under control. He's on the he's off that non-football injury list. He was able to get on the practice field yesterday. Was he involved in team drills or anything like that?
Yeah, he did. Limited, because he's going to be limited as far as getting his conditioning back. So, but will he play tomorrow night? Maybe some.
He said that he wouldn't mind playing, but that's what every player's going to tell you, right?
Right. And normally they don't, practice once practice once since the start of camp and play. But I was concerned about his conditioning when he comes back. But he told us he got to work in. He worked with Aaron Burrell and the rehab staff. And the one thing to keep in mind, he's got 17 days to get into shape, to get into better shape. And this is not going to be barring injuries, a 40-snap guy.
Right.
He'll get some work in there for Grover Stewart at nose. Maybe he can work also and give Buck some rest. But I think that this is one of my major concerns, along with the secondary, was who was going to be Grover's backup at nose. We saw, and we've got the numbers of what this defense is against the run without Grover.
It's atrocious.
It's from like 113 a game to 150 something, and almost a yard and a half a carry more. So, and this is what this guy was brought in for: 6'7", 325 or more, and he's just a massive person. So I think getting him back is huge. You hate to lose Sampson. You really hate to lose him. But you've got to have that interior backup guy. They tried to use Tavon Bryan, and it just
it's out of position.
Well, as I said, the number state doesn't. Whenever you put guys out of position, it doesn't work. So it was great to see him out there. Does he play tomorrow night? We'll see. But the fact is, he'll be ready September 8th.
And it's a good thing that he was brought in as significant depth for the defensive line, but it would be a different story if we were talking about this being Buck or Grove here, because then you are looking at guys that play a significant number of snaps. There's no way they're going to have their conditioning ready to go by, the season opener and stuff like that. But with Davis, they can sort of just work him in when they need him, and then hopefully your thought is by week 3, 4, whatever, he's ready to go and play the full load that you were expecting him to play.
Correct.
So he's good. The other big free agent signing for the Colts, and I use big in air quotes, was Joe Flacco as backup. And I'll just go ahead and take that as I had this later in the show, but I'll go ahead and mention it. Gardner Minshew winning the starting job with the Raiders. So congratulations to Gardner. I guess.
Good for him. I mean, really good for him. We'll see. I tried to give him credit last year. Well, he should. He should for where the Colts were. I always said that I thought he was the reason they were at 4th and 1 in the fourth quarter, and I thought partially he was the reason
that they didn't.
They didn't. Right. I said throw a better pass, and I've had people tell me, there was a defender there. Whatever. But the fact that he got a great contract, $15 million guaranteed.
No way the Colts would match that.
And good for him. I hope it works. I have my doubts, but that's the Raiders' problem.
Yeah. Hey, always good vibes from Gardner. So good luck to him. I just thought we'd mention that. Some injury and some personnel notes from the Colts. I guess Jelani Woods is just not going to happen.
I don't know. In one regard, it answers one immediate question on the roster cut, I would think. He's got turf toe. He's going to have surgery. Almost more than likely, he will be one of those guys put on IR at the roster cut.
Right, designated probably to return.
Designated to return. I don't know if they'll do another one. I just can't see. Will they do that with Ibukam? It's an Achilles, for crying out loud.
We talked about that last week. That is such a different injury.
You get 8 guys can come back from IR, 2 from the preseason. 5 or 6 months, 5 months coming back from an Achilles. I don't know. But with Jelani Woods, let's say it takes 4 weeks, 6 weeks. What it does, again, you don't have to decide between.
Yeah, you don't have that. Is it going to be Will Mallory
or Drew Ogletree, who was with the number ones a lot yesterday? So I think this kind of it solves your your 4 tight end, 4 or 5 tight end, or who's your 4th guy. It takes over that.
You get to kick the can a little bit on it.
Yeah, but boy, they've already kicked the can. That's the problem. Is he misses all of last year with the hamstrings, and now this, and I don't know where the patience runs out. I had, when I did my 53 projection earlier this week, I had Woods making it because I thought his 3rd round status and the fact that they really believe this guy can be something would win the day over a Will Mallory, who really, as much as you think he can be something, he's
also had trouble staying on the field as well.
And he hasn't pressed anybody and said, well, of course you're going to keep Will Mallory over Jelani Woods, because, well, that's not been the case. As we talked about maybe last week, is I think we all maybe overvalued the tight end room.
Yeah,
it's as I call it. It's quantity over quality. It's obvious. It's obvious that Mo and Kylan Granson are 1-2, and I think Drew Ogletree is solid at 3. I wouldn't be shocked. They'll keep 4. I can't see him keeping 3. I just can't see that. But the Woods thing, it's just awful for the player. And at some point, teams move on. What if he misses half the season? What if he misses all the entire season? It's unfortunate, but that's where they are with him.
Yeah, and he injured himself in the Arizona Cardinals game. He did play in that one. Actually had a nice block in one of the things.
I think he played, was it 4 snaps or 5 snaps? It wasn't a lot.
No. And then it was all of a sudden, Jelani Woods on the sideline with a toe injury. And you're thinking, hopefully he'll be all right. And then also suffering a toe injury in that game, Tanner Bortolini, one of our backup offensive linemen, 4th-round pick out of Wisconsin. Although it doesn't sound like it's the same injury that Jelani Woods suffered, was a toe injury, and he's going to miss a little bit of time. But Steichen didn't seem to be too overly concerned about that, but you just never know.
Yeah, I've got to get more attuned to Shane Steichen's medical
how
jargon.
He does it.
I got Frank Reich down pretty good. You could tell if it was going to be day to day, week to week, or but whenever Shane says he's going to miss some time, and this was before the reports came out of surgery, but he doesn't give you a lot of tips or hints on what it is. It does not sound like Bortolini is even remotely long term. I get the impression he's probably going to be ready for the start of the regular season. Again, the thing is, they got almost 3 weeks.
Right.
2.5 weeks.
They'll have, 17 days in between until opening day?
Now, that means, if it's something that keeps him off the field, then you wonder about his, readiness to play. But the fact that it's not probably a short-term IR thing is encouraging for him. Because, again, I had, of my 4 backups, I think, on my 53, I think 3 of them are rookies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you would have had Gonzalez and
I think I had Dallas Tucker.
And Tucker, yeah.
Who's would be an undrafted free agent to sort of get that undrafted guy going. And then I'm trying to think who my veteran was. Pinner? I'm not sure who it was. I had Josh Shields until he
got IR, put on the IR.
So it's a good group. Blake Freeland.
That's right, yes.
And how can I forget him, although he's not had a great preseason.
He'd probably like you to forget him right now.
He's had
a rough
He's
camp.
had a rough time, and maybe players either grow from that or they don't. So we'll see.
So that's Tanner Bortolini. We talked about Juju didn't practice Tuesday against the Bengals. Trey Sermon still with hamstring, and we've seen those things linger before. And then when you're talking about those quick twitch running backs, that's not always guys who shift and move a lot of position around. Not an injury that you want to have to do, which could open some stuff up for, either Goodson or Evan Hall as well. Actually, the running backs last week in the preseason game looked pretty good. We'll talk about that. They
ran for like 166, so that's without Taylor doing much.
Pretty
without
solid
Taylor
work.
Doing anything.
Josh Downs still out with that high ankle sprain. We'll know more about his status as we get a little closer to the season open.
One thing that was encouraging was he was on the sideline there yesterday with no boot.
No boot, no scooter.
Right. So that's he's made his development or progress to just walking around.
Yeah, which is good. Again, if the Colts staff's listening, and I know they often listen to our advice here on the Colts Blue Zone podcast, don't bring Josh Downs back until he's ready.
And they won't. And as I said this before, people think that teams push players back quickly. They don't. It's just the opposite. It really is. How many times I've talked to players and said, I was ready to go, and they wouldn't let me go. And Sometimes that's concussions, which are different.
Yeah.
But we've had guys say, "Yeah, my ankle feels fine," and the team will hold him out for the play, because if he has to play, he's going to play. He's going to play unless there's the old bone sticking out. But I still think Josh Downs is going to be iffy for the opener. But they will not rush him back, because you don't want this instead of being 2 games to be 2 months.
Yeah, there's no reason to bring him back for week 1 if he's going to be able to be back in week 2 or week 3,
right.
And be as close to 100% as you can be. And of course, in the NFL, as close to 100%, that's it can be a pretty gray area.
You're normally 100% when you report on for camp,
exactly,
and then there's that attrition. And it depends on where your attrition level is as the season goes along. A
couple of signings from the Colts this week. Mike Panasiuk, who's a center, although he played defensive line for Michigan State, and he spent some time in, not the
UFL?
That's the one. And then Mike Smith Jr.
United Football League?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And then Mike Smith Jr., a linebacker. Center Ryan Cole, who was on the Colts' unofficial depth chart, but before this injury, he's been placed on IR. Waived injured Josh Sills, which we talked about before, and then Ethan Fernia reached an injury settlement with the team. I think he was waived injured, and it's one of those things where they've got to go clear waivers, and then they can do an injury settlement with a team, and then he can. I guess that means he can sign with anybody if he wants to.
Yep.
At that point. So. Those are some of the personnel notes. Speaking of that unofficial depth chart versus the Bengals, essentially nothing has changed there. You've still got
the oars.
Still got the oars in there on the line depth with Danny Pinto or Tanner Bortolini, which we will not see Bortolini tomorrow night.
Pinto did almost all the work with backup center.
Okay.
Yesterday, so do you want you need to have some type of veteran presence, I think, in your room. If they kept 10 offensive linemen, maybe he's a 10th.
And Pinter, I mean, he was not great when they swung him to the interior in the guard position, but when he had to fill in at center, there was not a huge drop-off there.
What was that, 2022?
Yeah.
He was like 3-0 when Ryan Kelly was out.
Yeah, so he did an admirable job of filling in at center. But when I think they saw that and they thought, hey, we can shift this guy over to guard, and then that did not work out. So we'll just have to see. All positions are a little bit different. Trey Sermon listed as the number 2 running back, although, of course, it means nothing. Nick Cross listed as your starting free safety as well. And again, nothing has changed.
Which means nothing.
Means nothing. So we just talk about it because it's something to chat a little bit about.
Because they make us talk about it because they won't settle on things.
That's right. Absolutely right.
This isn't our fault. This is their fault.
We will talk a little bit here about the Arizona game from last week, the Colts winning 21-13. It was a Saturday night game. Mostly backups playing, although we did see Juju Brents play a considerable amount until he left the game because of that nose injury. Nick Cross played a fair amount. And then also, kind of surprising to me, of course, I guess he did miss some time, but Dayo Odengbo was playing like through the fourth quarter there, and I think that surprised everybody, including Dayo.
Nate Atkins of the Star talked to him, and I think Dayo was measured in his responses, but just the way he delivered and the look, he wasn't pleased. And Shane Steichen's, reasoning was sort of vague. Well, it was a numbers thing. Well, then find somebody else.
So get somebody else to put in there.
Find somebody else in that 10-0 game in the fourth inning to eat up innings, type of thing. So yeah, I don't understand what that was about, because Dayo is one of your eight unquestioned rotation guys,
and he's had a good camp from when he's been in there. I know he missed a little bit of time, but not.
Don't understand it, and he's in a contract year, coming off his best season. So I don't know if there was something behind the scenes we don't know about, but I don't think Dayo was, because he's out there playing in the fourth quarter, and his buddies are over there with their bucket hats on.
Yeah, it was kind of surreal. Like when you follow the team pretty close, and you know who's kind of your top line players and who's your reserves and stuff, and you're looking in the fourth quarter, and you still know Dengbo's out there, and you've got Quiddy and Buck, and all those guys are just like they're on the sidelines.
At that point of the game, you're looking at numbers that you just don't recognize.
Right, exactly.
And all those, like 74 with Lalu's out there, and I see 54. I think, wait a minute, we got 2 54s on this roster? No, it's Dayo. So strange. He'll play more. No, I won't say more. He'll play. He probably plays less this week because
if the starters are indeed out there, right?
So, but yeah, and other takeaways. I think what's always fun to watch, and the fans always get a buzz, is the quarterbacks who play, because this is like Saturday night at the Improv when you're back. Sam Ehlinger, bless his heart, this is his
Mr. Preseason.
I'm telling you, because this is when he thrives. He thrives like off schedule. He had the one where he shook off a sack and threw a 20-yarder downfield. And Jason Bean, he's not Anthony Richardson, but he's got that.
He's got some of those traits.
He's got that. And
that speed.
Do you see? I know Ballard loves him from his Kansas connections with Ballard's son Cole is a quarterback there. Do they? Certainly they've got to keep. I just think they're going to keep Sam on the practice squad as the third quarterback. Would they keep two quarterbacks and keep Bean? I don't know. This will be Sam's fourth season, I guess it is.
Yeah.
That's rare. But I think they know if the really worst happens and your two quarterbacks go down, the Sam can go in there and sort of keep things right as long as other things don't happen. But I really enjoy the preseason watching these quarterbacks play, even though normally that guy shines and then he's gone, and fans say, "Oh, Chad Kelly, what do you mean Chad Kelly's not on this roster?" Well, there's a reason,
right?
But Sam really makes the most of it, and it's always fun to see on 3rd and 7 if he turns a corner on a scramble or whatever, and he sees the marker, he doesn't go out of bounds.
Nope.
He's he may not get there, but he's gonna take some punishment to get 6 yards. So I'm really curious what to do with Sam. The new rules. You can elevate that third quarterback from the practice squad.
Right, because last year you could have a third quarterback, but they had to be on the 53.
Correct. And so we'll see how that works. They'll carry a third quarterback on the practice squad. I just don't think they'll carry 3 on the active roster. I think they have enough faith that Sam won't get claimed. It's just hard to believe that there's a team that's thinking, boy, if the Colts make,
we're gonna go and
grab
Ehlinger.
And if he's on the practice squad all season, he you can poach him anyway.
Yeah, you could grab him anyway,
unless the Colts can do some kind of an incentive or whatever. But I hope there's a spot for Sam. It's kind of like though with Joe Flacco. I'm glad he's here. I hope he doesn't play.
Well, and it's kind of given some of the competition that the Colts have in both secondary and they need spots on the offensive line.
You can't take the roster spot.
I think that roster spot is way more valuable for another position other than quarterback when you feel like things are settled at quarterback, which they should be.
Right.
So, but yeah, no, it was still fun. I mean, to see Ehlinger go out there, he does clearly understand the offense out there, loves to play. The 20-yard completion that he had, it reminded me of the Eli Manning play from the Super Bowl where it looked
minus the helmet
catch, because it looked like he was dead to rights. Somehow he emerges from that, and then he gets and I think it was Tyree Cleveland that caught that one, made a nice catch on it as well. So good to see. And then Bean just running out all over the place. And is he a perfect quarterback? Of course he's not. He made a bad interception as well, but he also came back from it. So you do like to see that type of stuff from them. A couple guys that I noticed that stood out to me is Isaiah Land off the edge for the Colts. I think probably if Ebukam were healthy, I don't think Land probably makes this roster, but I think there's kind of a little bit of a sliver of an opening there. I could see him maybe getting in the edge there.
Him or Jannard Avery, maybe.
Mm-hmm, maybe.
But there could be a pass rush spot open.
They do seem to like him there. And then Adetomo Adebawore has had a really, really nice camp and has really flashed in some of those preseason games. So I think Addy's probably gotten him a roster spot. I guess we'll know here in a little bit.
Here's what you want to see is that, again, it's preseason, but you like to see that jump from year one when he didn't get a lot of snaps to where you just notice 95 all the time out there. And he's a guy you're going to find places. It's not the same as Tyquan Lewis where he gives you so many different options where he can start at 3 spots or whatever. But you just like what he gives you. And whenever you look at it, there's always the same guy. Like Latu. He's doing something. He's got that quick twitch and he's around the action, and that's what Addy is right now.
Yeah, he's had a really great camp, so we'll see where he goes, and I think he's got a role somewhere on this defensive line. Can't really go through this without talking a little bit about Matt Gay. We talked about it a little bit with the joint practice yesterday, but in the game, here in game action, missed from 53. Missed from 50 or from 44 as well.
Wide left both.
Wide left both, and I think the one against Denver was also hooked
50
left.
Was that 54?
54, I
Right.
think, from that one. Now this week it was a little bit different. I know kind of the excuse that he'd been peddling out a little bit.
A
reason, was that I think it was Spencer Schrader that was holding for him this week because Rigoberto Sanchez was out because his wife was having another baby, and so he missed that game, the preseason game, so he had a different holder. But on the other hand, you are a highly paid kicker, and 53, okay, yeah, maybe that's long, but you should still hit those 44, man. You got to hit them.
I went back and looked as well as I could tell on the NFL Plus replays. It looked like the holes were fine.
The operation looked okay.
I didn't see laces. This is, and we talked to Brian Mason, the special teams coordinator, 10 days ago or so, after he missed the one against Denver, the 54, whatever it was. And he just sort of said, yeah, he's got to trust the process and be more aggressive. And after the Arizona game, Matt Gay mentioned about, I'm coming across too quickly, which is like with a golfer, where all of a sudden you get. I'm not saying he's got the yips. I'm old enough to remember Steve Blass.
Oh my goodness! Yes.
Where he from one year he's a great pitcher, and the next year he can't find a catcher. Steve Sachs type of thing. We're not there, but at the same time, like I said, it was the Colts made him the second highest paid kicker in the league last offseason. And after 3 great seasons with the Rams where he missed 6 kicks, he was a 92% kicker. Last year he misses 8. And he started 16 for 18 last year. He won the Baltimore game.
So he peaked in the Baltimore game. He had a tremendous game.
You know, the NFL record, 4 50-yarders and all that. But after going 16 for 18, like I mentioned, he's like 18 for 27. That's 67%. That gets you out of the league.
Right.
But the Colts, they're insistent that it's not an issue. I'm sure internally they think, hey, this guy's got to come through. You know, I think they were. I would look there. They were 6-3 in one score games last year. That's miss a couple of kicks and all of a sudden you're 3-6.
Absolutely. Yep.
Go back to 2019.
Yep.
They stuck with Vinny much longer than they should have. That was injury issue. That was injury. He had a knee that needed to be scoped. But he cost them, the kicking game cost him 3 games. I could argue 4.
Absolutely, yeah. That was huge that year.
Right. So, again, you just have to have a kicker, which I think they do, that when you're going to be a playoff contending team, you're going to have 3, 4, 5 times where maybe it's not in the fourth quarter with the minute remaining, but it's in the third quarter that pushes you up 2 possessions or whatever. And you don't want to have Shane Steichen on the sidelines when it's 4th and 6. Do you go forward or do you kick a 54-yard field goal? You've got to just say, no, go kick.
Yeah, go get our points.
Go get our points.
Yeah.
And because it's funny that he's still like a 70% kicker from 50 beyond for his career. That's crazy.
Which is insane.
Which is crazy. So hopefully he comes out. And again, I was encouraged yesterday. It was really kind of funny with the Bengals practice fields. They've got this 2 fields. It's pretty nice right next to the stadium. But they've got this temporary goalpost.
I heard it was leaning.
Oh, it was leaning. I mean, it was. I'm thinking, I've seen grade schools with better portable goalposts, and if you're a kicker, do you take into account the lean? It was crazy. But the fact that he went 6 for 6, and 2 of them one was the 50-yarder at the end, and he had a 58-yarder.
So he hit from distance from what I saw.
Right. So it was like they start at the 38 and they go back like 5 yards. Encouraging, but. We'll see what happens Thursday. You've got to
do it in a game.
I would kick him, and I don't think we need to give Spencer Schrader video for other teams to see. Get Matt Gay out there, and it's not like he's proven he doesn't need to work, and you need that connection again with the kicker and the holder and the snapper. So. Hopefully he comes out of this, and maybe yesterday was the first part of that.
Now, one of the great preseason traditions for the Indianapolis Colts preseason broadcasts is having Jim Irsay in the booth for about a quarter or quarter and a half, or it feels like it was a very, very long time this year.
Commercials made that happen, but yes, it did go on. It spanned 2 quarters.
Yeah. And but always in good spirits, always the most positive man in the room. Just a couple of things that I enjoyed. Him comparing Shane Steichen to Don Shula.
Premature. Shane Steichen has 9 wins, and Shula has 300 and whatever it is.
Called Chris Ballard a blue chip GM, which if that's his belief, that's fine. But I think the playoff record would dispute that a little bit. I know that there's always that Andrew Luck asterisk on Ballard's record.
I think
a little bit.
You can get like 2 years of an asterisk.
Right. Yeah,
and
we're past it now.
Right.
We're past that window a little bit. He said that AR was 260 pounds, which I don't know that
he's
he
listed
is.
244, but I think he's closer to 250.
I think 250 is probably where we would settle.
Because I think he told us he added like 5 pounds. I'm getting my players mixed up because Alec Pierce also put on some weight.
Oh, yes.
Kwity Paye dropped some weight. So it's hard to keep track, but 260, that's like, is that like Ben Roethlisberger area?
Yeah,
or Ryan Leaf when he came into the league and didn't work out? But that sounded a bit puffy.
Also believes that not this season, not that it's going to happen this season, but eventually he believes Laiatu Latu is going to be a 15-sack guy.
He should be.
Which we hope so.
He should be. I mean, he took him. He's the first defensive player in the draft. Not this year, although Freeney was as a rookie was at 13.
I believe so. Yes.
Which I believe was a franchise record at the time, not rookie record, but a record. And that's not playing and not starting until halfway through the season. And this is gonna be, boy, I don't want to simplify this. This is going to be set up for Latu to have success. He's going to be brought in, advantageous rush positions. They're going to sort of game plan to where he can maybe get single blocked, because if not, you're going to have Kwity Paye or Buck or someone, or Tyquan Lewis he gets pretty good pressure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he can.
So I think there's going to be opportunities, and at some point he needs to be, the tip of the spear. That's why you took him first overall, with your picks, and that's why he's the highest drafted defensive player, pass rusher, by the Colts since Freeney. It wasn't to be a compliment to Kwity Paye. It was to be the guy.
Yeah, and they need the guy.
They need the guy.
They need the closer.
We've talked. Whenever we get pass rush by committee, we get receivers by committee. Well, that's because you don't have a guy. And teams that have the guy, they're just different. If they had a guy last year, as much, all time, Indy record sacks and all that, there were some games, the Houston game, where you need pressure on third and whatever, and it doesn't come, and then that exposes your secondary. So I don't think, Irsay didn't say 15 sacks this year.
No, just eventually he will be a 15-sack guy.
And eventually he needs to be.
And you want that. Everybody in the NFL wants that unblockable guy, whether it's your TJ Watt, your Max Crosby, your Von Miller back.
Hendrickson with Cincy.
Hendrickson's really, really good for Cincy. And that's kind of what, and we've said this before, even the past couple of years on the podcast, that is one of the ingredients that this Colts pass rush and this Colts defense has been missing, is that guy who can just get it done when you need him to get it done.
Who's been the closest? Justin Houston his first year as a free agent?
Probably since Mathis, yeah.
Right, yeah, post Mathis. Ngakoue never really was that. I mean, he got you, 8 to 10, whatever it was. But they need that guy. And again, I've been so, used to having Freeney and then Mathis, and then one of them's going to do it.
Right.
One of the guys is going to win. And I think the combination of Kwity and Latu, and then with Buck inside and passing down, you maybe put Dio or Tyquan in there or whatever, I think it's a pretty interesting group.
And it's not bad to have a lot of guys having sacks. That's not what we're saying, but you need to have that guy who, when it is 3rd and 7, and you either need to get that quarterback off the spot to make a bad throw or sack the guy. Oftentimes this last season, in those key situations, it just did not happen for the Colts.
Right.
And when the other team would max protect and that sort of thing.
And it's hard. It's strange to say that when you have 51 sacks.
It is. It is strange to say that.
But it's still a fact that in some key games it just wasn't there. And I think sometimes that guy, you're not having to be creative, because pass protections account for that guy.
Right.
Well, okay, then if it gets to the point that people are teeing off on double teaming Latu, he was surprised in the Denver game.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
His first snap, they doubled him. They chipped him and doubled him, which he was surprised. Well, if they pay attention to somebody has got single blocking, and that's the guy that's got to win, and hopefully this group can do that.
All right, so now we turn our attention to the third and final preseason game for the Colts. That'll be tomorrow night as of this recording of this podcast. That'll be Thursday, 8 o'clock kickoff against the Cincinnati Bengals at Paycor Stadium. The game will air on Fox 59. Blue Zone coverage starts at 7:30, but for those out of the Colts viewing market, it will be on Amazon Prime. So it'll be kind of one of the Colts few prime time games. Mike, kind of what are you looking for? What do you got your eyes on? And I know you'll probably publish something on the websites for this too.
Another clear look at the safeties and how are they going to play them. Will it be Nick Cross back there at free and Julian at strong? How much work will Latu get? Offensively, they need to play, but I don't want people to come out of this game thinking, boy, that was just a dull offense.
Right.
We didn't see much. Well, you're not going to see much, dog. You're not. But will we get a better look of what they want to do at tight end? Maybe, again, what we saw yesterday was Drew out there as the number one guy more than Mo, and I don't think that's a slap at Mo. It's they need to get a better.
They wanted to look at him
right in that group, and how they handle the slot. We could see we could get an indication there what they want to do. When they went three wides at one point they put Granton in the slot to the right, and I think it was maybe AD was out wide, and then Pitt was on the left side, and then pre-snap they put where you think Grantson's in the slot. Then at pre-snap they put Mitchell in motion, and all of a sudden Pitt's in the slot because of where Mitchell ends up on the left side. So I think there's going to be very creative on how they line people up, and then maybe who's going to when they start subbing. I'm going to look at who the left tackle sub is. Is it going to be Freeland? I just don't think they want to give up on him. But, and I thought, I'll mess up the rookie's name. Gonzalez.
Looks exactly like it's pronounced exactly like it's spelled.
Right. Maybe he's out there. He got some snaps during the scrimmages with the second group at left, and they had Freeland on the right side, which is just an indication they're wanting to get Freeland work on both sides. So never get preoccupied with how did the second offensive line look. That's not what they're trying to. Howard Mudd told me that a long time ago. We're trying to get Danny Penner at center. We want to get this guy at right tackle. We want to get players, not groups, on the second group. That's primarily it. And then cross your fingers, nobody comes out with an injury because
we don't want another broken nose or a
high ankle sprain or whatever.
Right.
Because the next time you're on the field, it's the Houston Texans, and they really keep score.
Yeah, and it actually will count. I'm looking forward to what I would like to see. I would like to see a little bit of consistency from the offense, some efficiency from the offense, especially some stuff that's underneath. I wouldn't mind if we took a deep shot or two just for the heck of it. And then I don't think we'll see much of JT, but I wouldn't mind seeing JT pop off a good run or two behind the line. I know that they struggled a bit as a unit yesterday, and then it sounded like, they got into the 2-minute drill. Steichen had been watching the defense. He comes over. They do the offensive portion. He comes to watch that 2-minute drill, and then suddenly the offense is clicking a little bit. Does his presence, his aura, just automatically do that to the offense?
I hope not. I mean, I hope they don't need the teacher over their shoulder and make sure you're getting your homework done right. But again, he's the offensive guy. I mean, and he's he lets. It's kind of interesting that he goes back and pays attention to the defense because that is part of the team. But this is Gus's defense, but we've talked about it. This offense plays better when there's a sense of urgency. We're not going to see these guys go no huddle.
No,
go up tempo. You just don't. You just can't do that.
Save it for the opener.
Right. Well, I don't think they'll do that much in the opener.
Yeah.
I mean, they may.
I guess save
mix
it for when
in.
you need it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they'll do. They could mix it in. If you run the hurry up, a la to the extreme, the Buffalo Bills back in the Kelly days, that's fine. But when you don't do it well, then you're putting your defense right back out there.
Did anyone ask Steichen yesterday if he was going to call plays this week on the offense?
Did not come up.
Because last week he's let some of the assistants do it during the preseason, and I would guess since they're kind of treating this as sort of your tune-up, you would kind of want your operations to go as they normally would in a regular season game. So maybe he seeds them in the second half or something like that. How much do you think we'll see from the starters? I know it'll probably depend on a case-by-case basis, but probably at least a quarter, maybe quarter and a half.
Initially, Chris Ballard mentioned a half.
He said a half, right?
Well, he said at least a half.
Yeah.
Which back in the days when they really
They play into the third quarter.
They like to have them go in the halftime and then do your
drive and
come out for the third quarter drive. It won't be that. It'll be whether it's a set number of plays. It's probably a set number of plays, but that depends on how successful you are on drives.
Right. If they go 3 straight 3-and-outs, for example,
then I'll give them a fourth.
Right. Exactly.
But if they have a couple of a 10-play drive to start and then an 8-play drive, maybe that's enough. But you want situations. You want a 3rd and 7. You'd love some red zone work.
Right.
Which and then whether it's a touch, you always like. I think it'd be really encouraging internally for the offense to get out there and like you said, be efficient. 3-and-outs. There might be one, but you'd really like to go into the regular season with a good feeling, as opposed to, the last game we saw them, there were 3-and-outs and a fourth drive where they got 2 first downs and they fumbled interception. So be efficient, have a couple of good, one long drive. I'd be encouraged. I'd be really encouraged.
Yeah, because we just didn't see much. I mean, the first team offense played a couple of drives and really didn't do much in the first game.
I think it was 2 drives and 7 plays.
Yeah, and it wasn't much.
So give him. I think the last game last year they played. I think they played the entire half. It was 27 snaps. That's a pretty good day. I don't think they'll go that long, but they want to be efficient and get some stuff done. But again, it's still going to be vanilla. If you like vanilla ice cream, enjoy.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see a lot of RPOs, read option, all that stuff. You'll see that in week 1. Probably from the jump, but they don't want to show anybody anything right now, and that's not just the Colts. That's everybody in the NFL not wanting to tip their hand what they're going to do. Why would you?
That's
absolutely
crazy. This is what we're going to do. We're going to work on it in the game. No, we've seen quite a bit of that at training camp. So people know, teams know generally what you want to do, but it's different when they're out there and you're actually executing it. Yeah,
trying to react to it. So again, 8 o'clock kickoff for the Colts. That'll be Thursday night, Amazon Prime, locally here in the Indianapolis market on Fox 59. Our coverage starts at 7:30 with the Colts Blue Zone. Colts are 1-1 on the preseason, so trying to finish on the winning edge there, although again, it doesn't really matter. Looking ahead, the 53-man cut day is August the 27th. Do you know the time on that? Is that a 4 p.m.?
It's like a 4 p.m.
Okay.
Is that next Tuesday, right?
Yeah. That'll be the cut day when they've got to get their roster down to 53, and then even then for the Colts it won't be over because they'll be looking at the waiver wire.
It's the cruelest day of the year.
It's the worst
because a kid's going to make it.
I made it. Oh no,
and
they signed another guy.
And then the next day they're going to say, which is I think these young players understand that, but there's probably going to be 2 players that teams cut that are just going to be better than what you kept, whether it's at safety, whether it's at tight end. I mean, again, the tight end group hasn't really, established itself, so there'll be a couple of players. There always, almost always are.
Chris Ballard is anything. If he's anything, he's a roster tweaker. He's always looking at ways to add something to the roster.
Must be part of his contract where you get, it's like a bonus for every roster move. You get an extra $250. I don't know.
Yeah, he's a pretty wealthy guy, right?
Yes, he is.
All right. So, and then week 1, the Colts will next play on September the 8th. That'll be the regular season opener at home against the Houston Texans.
We will know so much about this team that Sunday evening after the Texans game. We will.
Yeah, and that is going to be great. It'll be a divisional game. They need to get a good start in the division. They need to get a good start in an opener. They've not won an opener
way or
forever.
the other. One way or the other, we will know something much more about this team.
So hopefully we'll have positive things and positive vibes to talk about then. But for Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths, I'm Matt Adams. You've been listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. Thanks for listening.